Welcome to another edition of Coffee with the Candidates. Nancy Winandy here with Yankton Thrive, and joining us today is Tom Bixler. He is a candidate for the Yankton City Commission, and once again, Election Day is April 8th, with early voting starting March 24th. Tom, thanks for joining us here today.
Thank you very much, Nancy. I'm very proud to join you.
Well, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to the viewing audience?
My name is Thomas James Bixler. I have lived here in Yankton since 1990 for public service. I have served on the Yankton Park Advisory Board, which I still do. I have also served on the Yankton County Drainage Commission, and I am also a former president of the now defunct Yankton Kiwanis International.
So what sets you apart from the other candidates?
What sets me apart from the candidates, I think, is I want to be a city commissioner by myself. Usually when a candidate runs, they are asked by other people that think that they would be a good fit for a job like this. And then they might say no, or they might say yes, but then if they say yes, they might think, oh, well, this person talked me into running, so therefore I might owe them favors or support if I get elected, and then I'm doing what they want because they got me into office. And I think that I decided to run for Yankton City Commission all by myself with no pressure or from anybody in this community. And I think that I am a person who can work with all 8 of my fellow commissioners to do the best for this community. I'm not going to be a person who is just set on my own priorities. I'll work with everybody.
So, in your opinion, what is the role of a city commissioner?
I think the role of a city commissioner is to be a good citizen among everything. The city commission is comprised of Yankton citizens who care about this community. And I think the best role of a commissioner is to work with everybody and for everybody.
So the city is working on updating the comprehensive plan. Do you have any thoughts on the plan and what should be included?
I think the comprehensive plan is something that all citizens, every one of our many citizens in this community and this county, need to be involved in, because it is something, it's their tax money that goes into this comprehensive plan. It's their tax money that funds everything in this community and this county. So it's easy for some people to say, we elect commissioners to fix our problems, if I can say it that way, so the rest of us can have our, with respect, simple lives. And I think that for something like the comprehensive plan, everything needs to be thought of and worked on by every citizen in this community, not just the Yankton City Commission or any other group. And because if you go into it thinking, oh, this person elected me to fix this problem, then you're going to have a whole bunch of other people saying, my tax money is going into this thing and I don't like it. And you didn't think of or care about what I had to say. You just did what your supporters told you to say. And so, saying that, every citizen in the community needs to be involved in this issue. And as far as what I'd like to see involved in it, I'd like to see full access to almost every building in this community, not just for wheelchair people, which I happen to be, as you know, but for all of our citizens, from our young ones to our older ones that have put so much into this community before us. And I am very, very tired of people saying, oh, we just don't have the money to fix this particular thing. Well, if we don't have the money, we need to raise it. And I'll get into that on the next few questions.
Okay. So setting the city budget, speaking of money, and establishing priorities is an important component of being a city commissioner. How will you navigate the budget process, and what are some of your priorities?
In my similar question to this, I answered it. I said, this is another thing that all the citizens, and not just the commission, need to be involved with. Because, again, you're going to have, for all the citizens who think this is great, whatever the project is, then you're going to have another person saying, what's my tax money going towards that I don't support in all likelihood because I'm either too old or I'm whatever. I remember I went to a city commission meeting 2 weeks ago, and Gary Moore was talking about the Event Central project that the commission decided they weren't going to put any more money toward because they didn't know who the businesses were that were coming in there. And Gary had a whole huge thing about how his taxes were going up, and he didn't like it. So the answer to that is all the citizens need to be involved in the budget because all of their tax money is what that budget comprises of. So it needs to be handled not just by the city commission or not just by the county commission or just by a group. It needs to be handled by everybody in this community. And if I'm elected, I will call as many people as I need to, the citizens of this community. I don't care if my phone bill goes up to whatever. I'll do it. I'll say, I'd even say to you, Nancy, as a citizen, what do you want in the city budget? And I'll make dang sure, within reason, that it gets there. Or at least that you as a citizen are telling the city commission what you want in that budget and what you want your tax money to go to, because that's what the citizens of this community deserve.
So just for the viewing audience, what Tom's talking about as far as the meetings for the budget are open to the public already, but a lot of people just don't show up at those meetings. So getting people to pay attention and be more involved in that process is really beneficial, because you learn a lot about the city, and then you do have that input as far as what some of the priorities could or should be within that budget.
That is correct.
So the Meridian Bridge is an iconic and unique asset to Yankton. What process would you propose or support regarding the long-term plans for the bridge? It might include repair, removal, and then how are we going to pay for that?
My personal opinion on it is that I would support any repair to the bridge that we can do. How we're going to pay for it is that I think the best way to do it is a bond issue. Because, as you know, Nancy, we have, over the last couple of years, we've had at least one opt-out a year. I don't know how many years it's been since we had the last one, and I'm not going to try to lie about it, but it's like we've had one opt-out a year. So if we're going to have something like the bridge, or any bridge in this community that we want to either repair or remove, we should go to a bond issue, because the bond issue, the concept of it is that the voters decide where their tax money is going to go, and the voters, including you and me, decide if this bridge, the Meridian Bridge, for instance, is a priority. If they don't think it is, they're going to say, we're putting too much into this. If they think it is a priority, then we say, we're going to put more money into it, and I'm proud to do it. Personally, I am proud, or I would be proud, to put my tax money into the bridge. But that's just my personal opinion, because I think that a bridge is a very beneficial thing to any community, and I don't see a reason other than the fact that some people would just say it's too old for it to just go. It's not an old tree that's just been sitting someplace for how many ever years it's grown. It's a bridge that is part of this community, and personally, if I am elected, I will do everything I can to repair and keep this bridge, or any other bridge that is still usable. I'm going to make that point very clear. As far as all bridges are concerned, the ones we need to keep are the ones that are not just salvageable for just seeing it, but usable as well.
So what are your 3 favorite things about Yankton?
My 3 favorite things about Yankton: first, Riverboat Days, of course. Second is continued opportunities to serve this community, which I've always done. And third is that our people, our community leaders, get yearly elections, which you don't usually see in most other states in the country, or in the federal government at all. If you go to Congress, you have to wait 2 years for one of them and 6 for the other one. So if a person does something that you don't like, that you think they shouldn't be elected for again because they did, if you're going for Congress or something like that, you have to wait how many ever years before that person comes up again. So you have to put up with them for 2 or 6 years. For our community elections, for the school board and the Yankton City Commission, they come up every year. And I think that is very beneficial, because not only does it bring new blood into it, but it also says, do you really want this commissioner, whoever they are, to stay, or do you really want them to go? and they know, as I will know, that any year of the time I know I serve 3 years if I get on the commission, but when that term is up, I know I'm up for re-election, and I know that I have to do this again and prove that I'm still the person that they want. And to me, that's very important, because like I said, you don't see yearly elections in almost anything else in this nation. Is all 2 or 6 or how many every years you want to go. And I think that's important to this community, and I like the fact that we have yearly elections.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about the library. Recently, it's been a topic regarding their need for expansion. Share with us your thoughts on the library.
I use the library very regularly. I'm pretty much a fixture down there at least once every couple of weeks. And I think that the library is something that we need to keep, as well as it needs to really keep up with the times. Because as a person who's lived in a wheelchair all my life, I've heard everything from this building is too old, and not just in the library, but I'm just using it for an example. This building is too old, to wheelchair people or old people are in the minority of the citizenry. I've heard it all, and I'm tired of it. So it needs to be kept up with the times, which means you can't just use the grandfather clause and say, oh, we don't need to fix this. As a matter of fact, I am a firm believer in the Americans with Disabilities Act, but I hate the grandfather clause. And I personally think that our library, and like I said, almost any building in this community, should be accessible for every person, every one of our 12,000 or how many ever thousand people we have in this community. There is no building in this town, including the library, that should not be accessible for everybody. Accessible for me, accessible for Nancy Wenandy, accessible for any other person you could name. And if I get elected, I will do everything I possibly can to make damn sure, excuse my swearing, to make damn sure that everything is accessible in this community.
So relationships and collaboration are important within the community. What role can you play as a commissioner to help build, maintain, or repair relationships?
Well, I said in this question when I answered in my written remarks that luckily for me, I don't have very many people who are my enemies. I'm a Republican and I'm proud to be one. But the City Commission, as I know, and you know, Nancy, is a place where that does not and should not come into play. I can work with all 8 of my fellow commissioners cordially, and if I disagree with them, I can say it to their faces, and if I agree with them, I can say it to their faces. I don't need to resort to what you read about in the paper saying, oh, Commissioner Nancy Wenandy did this and I don't like it. Because when Governor Nome was in office, before she got appointed Homeland Security Secretary under President Trump, I used to read her letters to the editor And it was always the same group of, when she had opposition, it was the same group of opposition saying the same thing every single time she wrote one. And it was always the same. She's wrong, she's bad, she's whatever they wanted to write, knowing they could get away with it on free speech. And I think that I can work cordially with every single commissioner, new or old, because I know them all, as well as I know you, Nancy. And I think what you asked, what sticks me out among the other candidates, I can work with all 8 of commissioners that I must work with if I get elected for the betterment of our community.
So, if you could change something in Yankton today, what would it be?
Again, it would be that everything in this town is accessible to all, not just wheelchair people, not just, I'll say for the viewing audience, normal people, not just young people, not just old people, for everybody in this community. I remember one time I was at ABS, which is Ability Building Services, and if you go into that building, they're all wheelchair accessible because, of course, they have to be. But we had a particular person who had a particular disability, which I won't get into. Part of his problem was that he wasn't very used to having his routine changed. And so there were 6 bathrooms in this place, and he could only use one because it was part of his routine. If you changed anything about it, he would just go crazy. And so I think my point on that is, like I've said 100 times in this interview, nothing in this town should be inaccessible to anybody. And if I could change anything, and I'll try my hardest to do it.
So, do you have anything that you want to include in this interview that was not a part of a previously asked question?
I will simply say, again, that I can work with everybody, and I can truly fight for this community with my fellow commissioners for the betterment of this community. And if that's the kind of Yankton City Commissioner you want, please, I would appreciate your vote on April 8th.
Well, Tom, thank you for joining us here today, and we both would love for all of you to go out and vote early, starting March 24th, or on Election Day, April 8th. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nancy.